Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of Just One More Podcast. This is August 27th, 2022. We've got John from My Brain on Games. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, I am still getting over all the various sicknesses that I had for about 10 days. I still have an annoying cough, but
And we know now that at least part of it was COVID. I don't think the results were in last week.
yeah, well, I last Saturday, which, by the way, for anybody out there, this is Jeff from Just One More Level. So last Saturday, I did take a test for COVID, came back negative, but then the following day, Corey tested, and his came back positive. And then I spent pretty much all week long, whether testing or taking all kinds of medication and working with my doctor to try to figure out just what all was going on. And it apparently all started with just seasonal allergies that led to a sinus infection, which then led to COVID. And so it was a nice little tsunami of illnesses that all just kind of piled on top of each other. But be that as it may, some people may think that would have meant that I played a whole lot of games, and I really didn't until about a day or two ago. So
on the other hand, it slowed you down.
Yeah. There were a couple times that I was just looking at game screens, and I was like, I really want to play games. I just cannot sit up and focus and think to do anything. So
Just gotta sleep and get your rest.
yeah. But I am feeling much better. Outside
As
of
you
an
cough
annoying...
into the mic. I'm feeling much better. Don't mind me.
And so for the most part, like it's I am feeling better. There's an annoying cough that has decided to stick around, but I'm hoping that it doesn't stick around for too much longer, because I'm ready to be back to 100%. Today was actually the first day that I went back to work in about 10 days, so it was a little, having to kind of kick the rust off a little bit, because it had been a little while.
Was it bothersome working with the cane?
I mean, not really. I mean, I used it to kind of help knock some pieces off, so it was fine. It was fine.
Yeah, it can come in handy.
Yeah, that's but with that, I did play quite a bit of Triangle Strategy over the last 2 days.
This is the podcast where you announce you have beaten Triangle Strategy. Right?
Not quite.
What?
I am
What?
I'm pretty much at the actual final battle now.
Now, are you sure?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see how else they could prolong things, because they definitely did a pretty good job of just padding out the last couple of chapters. Not a whole lot of combat, just a lot of characters talking and kind of setting up for this last battle. And but I am pretty much at the last battle. We are I don't know if you plan on playing Triangle Strategy anytime soon.
I don't think I'll play it anytime soon, but it is a game I wouldn't mind giving a shot.
Final Fantasy Tactics, it is not. Like it has some good tactical elements to it, but it is not as expansive as Final Fantasy Tactics is. Has some pretty good characters. There's some good personalities that are in it, but For anybody listening to the podcast, just be warned, there most likely will be spoilers throughout the games that we talk about today. But so I had mentioned this, I think a couple days ago, to you, but there's like older RPGs kind of had this problem a little more often than I've seen from more modern RPGs that pertain to like having a party that you soup up and you get them all kinds of great equipment and you pour resources into making them this like badass character for your party, and then at some point they leave your party. That's kind of where I'm at right now. There's a character that rides on horseback, so lots of mobility. He attacks with a lance, has a lot of power to him. His abilities allow for like attacking multiple enemies or just like running through enemies. So for the most part, a very powerful, versatile character. And as the story progressed to get to this final battle, he wanted to do one thing in the story, and the game it didn't work out that way. So he just decides, you know what? Fine, I leave. I'm done with this party. I'm done with this story. I'm done with all of you people. I'm gone. And the problem with Triangle Strategy is that there's there's finite resources to power up these characters. So the fact that I spent essentially each character has 3 tiers of classes. They start out in just kind of like a rookie state, and then they become a veteran, and then they become an elite class. To go from rookie to veteran, you have to have these items called I think Medal of Bravery. And then to go from veteran to elite, you have to have the Medal of Honor. The Medal of Honor items are more scarce than the bravery ones, and you really have to think about the characters that you're wanting to have, really powered up in your team. And it was just one of those very frustrating moments, because I was like, I thought RPGs had gotten past this. I have spent most of this game using these finite resources to power up this character, and now I can't even use him going into the final fucking battle. Like really?
Yeah, I mean, counterpoint would be, and this is just me speaking, that stuff used to bother me too, because like you said, it's like, oh man, I wasted these finite resources on this character, now I don't have that character anymore, or those items. Like, one that comes to mind is like playing Skies of Arcadia, where, okay, well, I'm going to give this guy this weapon, I'm going to give this guy these items, and then, he left and he took those with him. Well, crap.
Yeah.
That used to bother me too, but anymore, it does not bother me as much, and I think I just come at it with the mentality of, well, that was a finite resource I used on this person, in your case to promote this guy, and I'm not going to have him for that final battle, but it made it easier to get to that final battle with him in my party, with me using that finite item on him. Yeah, he's not here anymore, so he's not going to help me in that final battle, but I would assume at that late stage in the game, you probably got a pretty deep roster of characters to deal with the final battle.
Yeah, the one of the problems, there's a battle that takes place before the actual final battle, and you're trying to distract the enemy. There's not really a time limit on it or anything, but essentially you're trying to distract the enemy while another faction of your forces are going around to the southern the southern wall of the holy state of Hyzant's capital city, so that they can blow a hole in their giant castle wall. And essentially, the battle puts you and your team against an enemy that has nothing but enemies that are on horseback, that have lances that can attack 2 to 3 spaces at a time. So like they're closing the gap, and it essentially, I ended up having to really just turtle for the entire fight, because if I tried to space myself out or try to be too tactical with it, I just got picked apart, because the enemies, there's like 20 of them that are on horseback that can move great distances, and they can attack 2 or 3 allies at the same time, and then they can attack through barricades, because they can attack up to 3 squares. So without having that souped up character, I had to start messing around and tweaking my strategy a little bit more on the fly, but got through that battle, and yeah, so now actually going into the final battle, and then triangle strategy will be completed for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing those credits roll, see how the story wraps up, and I think this will make game number 9, I believe, of games that I have beaten this year, which is also one of the like highest number of games that I've beaten in a year.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, at least for quite some time. Like, it has been a long time.
I guess, like whenever we think of high school, it's like, well, you had the summer months, or, middle school where you had the summer months, you didn't have anything to do.
Yeah.
But, yeah, let me see, out of curiosity, where I am then for the year. Because I know, I won't look. It's generally like 20 to 30 per year. But for me, I'm also playing, I include like some short games in there, like, arcade games, which technically only take like an hour or less to beat.
Okay, so it looks like it should be, I think with Triangle Strategy being beat, it's probably going to be 7 games so far. But then I've got Eiyuden Chronicle that I'm also working on, which I did put 3 freaking hours into that.
Oh, nice. So those were some 3 enjoyable hours, right?
Oh, yeah. As far as like really getting into the nuts and bolts of what makes an RPG great, whew, man, I love taking 1 step forward to then be able to take 7 steps backwards. You had said that the game was very much a slog, and it is very much so. Like,
yeah, and we mentioned it multiple times on podcast, off podcast. For me, it was the sort of game where it's enjoyable. Like, I like it because you're just checking off a checklist, basically. Go get this, go do that.
Yeah.
And, the completion aspect of that, of completing a list, is enjoyable, but it is not a good game. It's the type of game with such a light story. It's got story in there, but, and I paid attention. But at some point, I'm really probably just thinking like the last 4 or 5 hours I spent just trying to get all the achievements and trophies. That last 4 or 5 hours where it's just you're doing nothing but the quests, it's really a podcast game where you just basically put something in and just zone out, because it's a very straightforward thing.
And so you did get 100% of the achievements, right?
Yep. Yeah, I have completed that game from an achievement trophy perspective.
Okay. That's
something you will trek towards?
I mean,
question mark?
I might as well, because like it is not it's not a complicated game.
No, it's easy. It's hard because it's not a lot of fun. It's kind of a chore. It's a slog, but it's not difficult. It's just time consuming.
Yeah, and I mean, the characters, they get upgraded, they get some new tricks up their sleeve as their weapons and armor get boosted.
And that was a cool aspect of the progression. You know, it wasn't just strictly, okay, you went up a level, so now you've got more health, you got better defense, and your attacks do more. Like, they actually did make a good effort of, hey, anytime you level up, or I forget what it is, maybe it's just like the different tiers of your armor, the different tiers of your attacks, like, there is a new aspect of that, whether it's a new gameplay mechanic, a new, like, traversal mechanic, or just something that is really impactful. Thought that was did a good job with that.
And so between the three playable characters in Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, who was your favorite?
I think just the primary character. I forget her name. It's probably top of your mind though.
CJ.
CJ, yeah. So I think I played as her like most of the time. And then there's the kangaroo guy who's your second recruit. He's more like a power guy, but he's slow and doesn't have as good of jumping abilities. His name is Guru. And then the third character you recruit to fill out that trio was the mayor. I liked her ability to float, kind of like Princess Peach in like Super Mario Brothers 2. But again, I basically just defaulted to CJ. I felt she had the greatest blend of attacks and jumping abilities. But that third character, the mayor, was
Isha.
Yeah,
I really like her. She's probably like my second favorite, close to first, just because of the ranged ability that she had. The problem that I do have with her is like sometimes it can be a little frustrating to aim her shots.
I remember that.
Like, again, the game is not difficult, but like there'd be some of these like floating witches and stuff, and just not being able to quite line up the shots, and then having to wait for her 3 bullets to replenish.
I'm sorry, we gotta rewind that. There be some witches. There be some floating witches.
There are floating witches that create those little shields around them that essentially you have to use. I'd say Isha. It might be Aisha. I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
There's no voice
Isha.
acting. But
those enemies were annoying for me, especially because, like I said, I always like defaulted to CJ. So whenever they popped up, it's like, okay, well, let me switch to Isha so I can break that shield, and then just switch right back to CJ so I can wallop on them.
So one area that I just got to, and I was getting frustrated on the stream with it, because these 2 hellhounds appear, and then you've got these like 3 or 4 little dogs that also appear along with them, and they just run back and forth, and they're very difficult to dodge, very difficult to just avoid their attacks. So they're constantly hitting, and whenever they do hit you, they knock your character down, and they do a pretty good amount of damage. And so it just wound up with me just mashing the buttons, trying to do enough damage before I died. So like I wish that there was a little bit more of a way to deal with those without having to mash buttons, but
And so you said you've picked it back up on stream. Have you been those 3 hours you put in this last week, was that on stream and you doing the voices for the characters?
Yep.
So you're gonna finish out the game in that manner?
Yeah. Finish it up, get the entire playthrough streamed through Twitch, and then exported to YouTube for anybody that's interested in the story and the characters, but not wanting to also go through the amount of fun that I'm going through playing the game.
Maybe somebody just wants to come watch you get frustrated fighting hellhounds.
Yeah. But yeah, that's one thing that is just so enjoyable, because I going through the Snow Peak area, going through the summit and the crest and all that kind of stuff, and then you take one step forward, and then the party's like, we should go back to the town and go talk at the tavern. It's like, Or how about we just, continue going forward so that we make more progress than having to do this whole thing over again. Um, Luckily, there's fast traveling, and it does load pretty quickly whenever going to different areas, but it's still just kind of one of those things, like dealing with the barrows and having to find the exact way to go in and out of those so that you can get back to town it's a little frustrating.
Yeah, I will say the fast travel was really well implemented as well. Like there at the end, whenever I'm basically just completing side quests, it's so helpful to be able to, okay, let me go to this little dungeon, get the items I'm needing, and then just go back to the entrance of the dungeon. But from there, go into the quick travel menu, and the town with its multiple sections. I'm so thankful they didn't just have like a one quick travel point for the town. Like, okay, just go to the town center,
yeah.
and then from there you have to branch off. It's like, no, they had a fast travel point for every little screen of the town, so it was very helpful towards the end.
Yes, especially as the town grows and you have more people and you're going through all the different like side quests and stuff, and it's like, okay, I need to go here. I'm so glad that I can just bring up the menu and go there. But so with that, I've almost completed the gold stamp book thing. I think there's one more. I think there's one more past the gold stamp book that I have to collect.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think there's maybe a platinum stamp book, and that's basic. I think gold stamp maybe is what you get for completing this, is what you get around the time you beat the story, and then there's one more to complete. Or maybe I have it wrong. Maybe it's platinum is about the time you beat the story, and then you have one more after that.
But like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to having that game completed. So then I'll have 2 additional games to add to my 2022 beaten list.
Yeah. Yeah, next week you should have 2 games completed. Unless there's a surprise, too. Unless you throw another short one in there, too.
Yeah, which I don't foresee anything short popping up, but
those are amateur numbers. You gotta pack those numbers up.
But it is something that both of these games have been sitting on the backlog for quite some time since they came out, and typically it's pretty rare for me to go back and play a game once I've kind of lost that connection. Yeah. But as far as games that we're playing and are close to beating, how is Shining Force going for you?
Shining Force is good. In the last week since we talked about it, I think I've put in about another 6 hours. I think last week I said I was a little more than halfway done. It seems like with the sessions I had today, that I am right near the end. I seem to be very close to beating it, and just kind of quietly trucking along. And it's a fine game, fine old tactical RPG, strategy RPG. Came out in '93, so there are some advancements that I want to say I'm used to, but are very appreciative. Generate feelings of appreciativeness, like whenever I play the newer Fire Emblems, like being able to see the range of enemy units, so then I can decide where I stick my units, or kind of to know what sort of enemies or terrain is going to be in the upcoming battle, and then I can customize my party to fit that. Those sorts of things aren't present in this, so there are some times where you just go into a battle, and I think there is a way I can just exit out of the battle by using the main character's egress magic spell, which I think just basically gets you out of the battle, that I could then use to basically, okay, let me get a sneak peek at what I'm going to be dealing with. Oh, there's a lot of mountains and terrain that's really going to slow down my on-foot units. Let me go get some flying people or some elves who can really traverse that terrain.
Yeah. So,
but
do you think for taking into consideration the fact that it came out in 1993, do you think it still holds up at least decently, or
Oh
do you
yeah,
think
sure.
it's still?
I mean, it's the same sort of thing with like the story. The story is real simple. Hey, there's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. Just deal with him. But
Well,
for what it is, it's fine. There's some funny book titles whenever you examine bookshelves in some of the towns. There's some kind of funny dialogue, but it's a 30-year-old game, so it's got blemishes that come with that, but they also can make it a little endearing. And since I've played tons of games from that, it's like I'm of that age anyways. They don't bother me that much. One thing I will say, kind of the same thing with like Fire Emblem and the maybe just newer strategy RPGs, tactical RPGs, is like in this game there is the concept of promoting a unit. They can change their classes just like they can do in many of these style games. Well, I didn't look at what the requirements were. I think I may have Googled it and just saw where some of the games in the Shining series were level 20. And so I just had that level in my mind. Because again, in the game, there's nothing, to my knowledge, that explicitly says, hey, here's when you can promote units. And of course, I'm playing like an emulated version. I'm playing on the Switch Genesis Collection, so I don't have a manual to look at. And so I've got most of my, again, I think I'm like end game. Like I'm probably going to beat this game next week in probably like 1 or 2 more sessions, I would imagine. And so I've got a lot of my characters in my core party of about 12 units of like who are like level 13 to level 20. Well, I thought the promotion level was 20. And so literally just before we started recording this, I went after finishing battle, like, okay, I got 2 of my units to 20. Let me go promote them. So I talked to the priest and I asked him, hey, I want to promote some units. And I go into the menu and I can promote all my units because the promotion level is 10, not 20.
Oh well, that's one of those happy surprises.
I guess
happy miracles or something.
Yeah, the last couple of towns I'd been to, they'd had weapons that are meant for that second class, and so I was like, man, I've got to be getting close to getting some promotions going on. I guess I am. I'm close to level 20 on a couple units. And of course, now I realize the promotion level is 10, and I could have been taking advantage of these stronger weapons for a longer time. But it hasn't been that big of an issue. Like, I've got some characters who are just walloping the enemies, and I wouldn't say the game has been a cakewalk. It's not super easy because, again, there are just some of those dated mechanics and things that you miss from newer games. But also, there are just some instances where I think me personally, I just play too aggressively. I kind of, like, you see me play Mario. I like play Mario games like I'm playing a Sonic game.
Yeah, gotta go fast.
Yeah, like, okay, there's a run button in this game. Well, I need to use it then, I guess. Like, I got to play this game to the max.
Yeah, gotta get to that next level.
Yeah, and so kind of on the same level, I play strategy RPGs pretty aggressively, and like I really shouldn't be sticking like my mages or my archers, kind of my more squishy units up on the front lines. But oftentimes, they have a longer range than those heavier, bulky units that should be my front line. And so I wind up putting them on the front lines, those mages and archers, and then like they like die in like one attack. It's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Let me see. Do I want to? And there's no permadeath in this game, so that's nice. But it's like, okay, well, do I want to go ahead and use the game's rewind feature that's in this compilation, or do I want to just tough it out if I'm near the end? So I've done a little of each, and that is one nice thing about playing this game in a compilation form, is having the rewind or fast forward feature. Especially fast forward, like whenever it's going through the enemy's turns. Turns are dictated, I think, kind of randomly, but kind of based on everyone's speed stat. So the flow of the battle is not the same every quote unquote turn. But if you're going up against like 12 enemies, like sometimes you're far away, you just see the cursor go to their unit, select stay, go to their unit, select stay. And so having the ability to fast forward through that stuff is pretty nice.
So, how much time did you say you think you have left with the game? Like maybe a session or two?
Yeah, I'd say I have less than 6 hours. I think I put in about 6 hours this last week, and generally I'm playing for like anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours per session, just kind of depending on what I'm doing. With playing it on the Switch, it's easy for me to just pick up and play. If like Jenny's playing a game, I can play this on the couch, or ideally I'm playing it up on the television and then using one of the 8BitDo M30 Genesis style controller. But yeah, I mean, I should, knock on wood, I should have it completed by next week. And I think that'll probably come in like 1 to 2, maybe 3 sessions tops.
Well, do you see yourself diving into Shining Force 2? Is that on the collection as well?
It is, and at the very least, it'll be added to my backlog. Throughout the last couple of years, I had these ambitions to go through all these like RPG series, and it usually the desire doesn't come all at once, but I was playing through all the Final Fantasy games, and I think 8 is the next one on the docket, or if I think where I stopped, I was like, well, I just beat 7. I'm going to go do Dirge of Cerberus and Crisis Core next, and then I stopped.
Yeah, oh, man.
Funny how that is whenever Dirge of Cerberus is the next game you got to play.
Yeah, it's just... speaking of RPGs and just games that are so enjoyable to play, Dirge of Cerberus is not on that list of games that are enjoyable to play.
I remember checking it out like a couple of years ago whenever I got to it, and I popped in the PS2. It's like, okay, I know it's not an RPG, it's like a third-person / first-person shooter. But the thing that really baffled me and that immediately gained my interest was the fact that, this is a PS2 game that has mouse and keyboard support. Let me go find a USB mouse and a USB keyboard and try that out. And so I did.
And the game won you over, right? Like you played all the way to completion, and
it's still on my backlog. But hey, whenever I get to it, it's only like 7 hours long. But
so
I did that with Final Fantasy, and then Star Ocean is another one where I got up to. I beat Star Ocean 3 till the end of time, and then Star Ocean 4 is the next one.
I love Till the End of Time. Such a good game.
And Suikoden, I'm right now kind of in the dregs of Suikoden and Tactics. I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to firing that up as I work through some of the games on my backlog, and then now I guess I can add Shining Force to that list. But Shining Force 2, I think, will remain there for a while. As we talked about last week, the Sega Genesis Mini 2 is going to come out towards the end of the year. I think it comes out in November. And that has Shining Force 2 on there. So I think, and I did pre-order it last week, I think I just brought it up and we were talking about it. Afterwards, I kind of was looking at the details more and kind of looking at the list of games. And, of course, it was late at night, so you're more susceptible to buy stuff late at night.
All those impulse buys.
And so I bought it. So I've got it pre-ordered. Shining Force 2 is on there. This is an M2 developed in collaboration with Sega compilation. And in fairness, the Sega Genesis collection compilation that's on like the Switch, the PS4, the Xbox, the PC Steam, it's not the greatest quality, but there is a lot of quantity to it. There's a lot of good games there. So I think I may wait to dive into Shining Force 2 whenever I get that. Just to have a better emulated version of Shining Force 2.
Yeah, just get some of those quality of life improvements.
Well, there's not any quality of life improvements. I mean, it is the game. The game is going to be the same across both. It's just going to be more true to life. It'd be more like I was actually playing the cartridge version.
True. So, anything else that you're playing alongside Shining Force?
Well, last week I said I don't know if I had started Record of Lodoss War Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth last week, or if I just said I was going to start it.
Yeah,
because
you said you were going to start it.
Yeah, because I felt like that was going to be something I could play in concert with Shining Force, and I felt like that wasn't too long of a game. It'd been on my backlog basically since we got our Xboxes, since it was on Game Pass, and I had heard of the game before just because it seemed like it was a pretty well received Metroidvania, and it is. It's pretty dope. I did beat it. It is also pretty short. I think one of the main criticisms I saw from the game from people talking about it after I'd beat it was, basically its length. This is game strongly inspired by Symphony of the Night, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And in that vein, there's a lot of exploration. You're going through this 2D castle. You've got, gorgeous pixel art, amazing animation. You got a killer soundtrack, and kind of some backtracking involved as you're going through this dungeon, this castle of sorts. But this one didn't have as many alternate paths to take. It still had them. There were locked doors that I'd have to return to because I couldn't open them right whenever I first encountered them. But it was pretty linear in comparison to other maybe like Castlevania games or like Metroid games. It was fun, very good. Like I said, like the animation is just amazing.
And if I remember, so it's kind of like an 8, or I guess closer to like a 16-bit style, like graphical style.
I'd say it's more 32-bit. Symphony of the Night was a PlayStation game. This looks better than a PlayStation game. So I mean, I guess you'd say, it's probably like a 64-bit game. They're not really. It's pixel art. It's 2D art, but they're not really trying to hit like we want a Super Nintendo look or we want a PlayStation look. They just want that style.
Gotcha. Well, and so with the games that we're playing, it seems like you've completed one. We both have about 3 that are really close to being completed. Anything on the like? I know you said that you're kind of thinking about Suikoden Tactics, like you're getting closer, and of course you are kind of in that tactical. I guess we both are kind of in that tactical mindset right now with me with Triangle Strategy and you with Shining Force.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, it might as well be a good thing to dive into Suikoden Tactics. I think, even though it's not one of my favorite games, I think I think that you would find some enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, I mean, we checked it out a couple months ago, and it seemed novel. Like even just from like that first stage we played, the gameplay mechanics seemed unique. It seemed like it wasn't just your cookie cutter strategy tactical RPG. And the visual style, I think it had like cell shaded graphics. Maybe less, the character models were cell shaded against kind of a more non-cell shaded background. I thought the visual style was pretty neat.
And so I think that might be a good one to ultimately to get Suikoden Tactics out of the way, so that you can then play quite possibly the best game in the franchise with Suikoden 5. I think just kind of get Tactics completed so that you can get back to the good parts of Suikoden.
Yeah. Well, after playing Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth, it made me think of Record of Lodoss War on the Dreamcast. That's the only other game related to the Record of Lodoss War franchise, which it's a series of Japanese fantasy novels, I guess, based off of a Dungeons and Dragons campaign or another like Dungeons and Dragons tile game campaign. Gotcha. But that Record of Lodoss War on the Dreamcast, I played it back in 2010. I played it like 10 plus years ago now and sunk a couple hours into it and just didn't vibe with it. It was like a Diablo clone, but I just really wasn't digging it. After playing Deedlit, it's like, well, I'm kind of familiar with all these characters now. Maybe I ought to go back and check that out. Give that a second look.
Well, and I mean, we've had some good experiences with the Dreamcast. It's a good platform.
Yeah.
All those times with Choo Choo Rocket and
plenty of great games on Dreamcast.
Yeah.
No need to evangelize it to me.
That's if only Sega wasn't getting in their own way, they could have had a better run at it.
Yeah, well, hey, the Sega Genesis Mini and the Sega Genesis Mini 2, those are the first pieces of hardware or console hardware that Sega has developed since the Dreamcast. They're making a comeback, Jeff.
I mean, if Atari can do it, Sega can try.
Yeah,
I mean,
Sega, take some tips from modern day Atari. You need to release a speaker hat. You need to get into hotels. Just give your branding to anybody who will pay you $5.
That's but outside of those, I think that as far as like my upcoming slate of games, I've been kind of going back and forth on whether or not I want to, really get back into Yakuza Like a Dragon, and I've got a couple people that I work with that have actually started playing Like a Dragon, and so that's really helping fuel the I need to get back into that game.
Oh yeah, it's always nice whenever coworkers or other friends are playing the same game you're playing. Got a chance to discuss it and catch up like every time you see them.
Yeah, which also in the vein of RPGs, it's a little more of a task to get back into an RPG that you haven't touched in a while. So being able to kind of hear other people talking about their journeys through Like a Dragon, it helps to alleviate that like getting my feet back underneath me, so to speak. As far as just what the characters are doing, where things are at as far as the story and all that. So I think once Triangle Strategy is completed, Yakuza Like a Dragon will be the game that I go back to. If I remember correctly, I think I was over halfway done with the game, so there shouldn't be a whole lot of time left with it. I don't foresee myself going for the platinum, and I think that's going to help me get back into the game and just complete it.
Yeah, just focus on the narrative and be like, okay, I can just knuckle down, not try and go above and beyond.
Yeah. And then possibly get myself into the Vita and PS4 Killzone games to wrap those up, because those won't, as far as single player wise, they're not going to be long games. So those will be fairly easy to get back in, and then just continue seeing that the 2022 beaten games list just continue to grow. So
cool. Well, kind of another spin-off of Deedlit for me. It's turned out to be like a launching pad. After I beat Deedlit, since it was so inspired by Symphony of the Night, I thought, well, Symphony of the Night, the 360 version, it's backwards compatible on Xbox. Let me pop that open. And that kind of produced a quandary for me. I'd played that back whenever it released on the 360, but my saves were still on the 360. Well, I want to play on the new Xbox, the one I have hooked up to the TV, so I went and got the 360 out of the storage room, out of the storage box, because whenever we bought our Xbox, we bought that bundle, whatever the bundle was that gave us Game Pass Ultimate, which going along with that means we have cloud saves, and with cloud saves, I can take those 360 saves, put them in the cloud, and boom, I got them on the new Xbox. So I did that for Symphony of the Night, and it was pretty cool to pop that in and be able to look at my 15-year-old save, literally saved from 2007, and be like, hey, I can resume that game. I had beat it back then, but there was 2 achievements left, and I never explored the full castle, all 200.6% of it.
Well,
but in that process, I started going through. It's like, okay, well, I've got the 360 out. Let me go ahead and just put any backwards compatible 360 game save into the cloud. That way I don't have to keep lugging this thing out if I decide to go play a different game that I had a save in. Yeah. So I went through and did that all Thursday night or something. I think I beat D-Lit on Thursday or Wednesday, and then I went and did that right afterwards. And that was kind of a tedious process. It would have been nice if there was a feature or a function that just basically let me pick all my game saves or all backwards compatible game saves and just put them into the cloud. But instead, I had to go through the storage one by one and just basically, okay, let me select the game, let me find the game save, let me move to the cloud, and then we go back and it processes it in the background. But it was a tedious process, but again, for someone like me who kind of likes checklists or cleaning, organizing, that sort of stuff, it was still kind of fun. It was a trip down memory lane, as it were. Going through and seeing, okay, all the games that I'd played. And it was also, besides being a trip down memory lane, it was helpful just seeing, okay, well, here, let me go through a list as well while I'm doing this to see what all games are backwards compatible. And then of those saves, some of them, I actually have some saves for you too.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Now, I could not move them to the cloud because I think once you move it to a cloud, then you retain ownership of it. So then I don't, I think if you tried to use it and be like, this is all messed up. But of course, Army of Two, which we played not too long ago, your save is on my 360 or on my memory stick. And then a real old one, Far Cry Instincts Predator. You have a save on there, God. Probably our multiplayer stats or whatnot.
Yeah.
So at some point, we'll have to move those up, get your saves moved up to the cloud. Most of the games only had one or two save files, probably just a normal save and an auto save. So it wasn't too bad, except for the Elder Scrolls games.
Oh boy.
Which I'm sure I'm sure everyone plays this way, especially with Elder Scrolls, where they give you the option to just always create a new save instead of just overwriting the same 2 or 3. Well, yeah. I think probably there wasn't as many with Oblivion, but I think with Skyrim I had 60 saves.
Well, I mean, you always want to make sure that you're not, going too far down a story path and not being able to go back to, if you see how a story's developing and you don't like it, being able to go back is very, very crucial.
Exactly. And I figured, well, I want to play Skyrim again at some point. With that original version, I have a lot of achievements left to do there. So I don't even think... No, I did beat the main story, but there's other quest lines I didn't complete that I'd like to get back to at some point. But I figured, well, I've got the 360 out. I don't need all these saves. I really would be fine probably just taking the last 3 most recent, but I'm here, so let me go ahead and just do them all.
Yeah. And so while you were going through your list of games with the save files that are backwards compatible, whenever you selected something, did it then take you all the way back up to the top? And then you have to cycle back down and just keep making progress that way? Or did it keep where you were at?
No, I think you're kind of talking about probably visualizing the same thing I'm thinking about too with the PlayStation Store, the PlayStation Vita re-download list. No. Thankfully, it was not like that. Basically, I'd go into the game, select the save, move it, and then I'd just basically back out, and it just keeps backing you out one level. So I would just have to hit back twice, and then I'd be back to the list of contents on the hard drive.
Because that's you and I have talked about this in the past about how with doing anything with the PlayStation Store, either on the Vita or the PS3, going through that god-awful download list for... If you hit download on anything, it's in that list, whether it's free or something you paid for, whether it's a demo or a trailer you downloaded or a piece of DLC that is just an outfit for something. And then if you select what you're, something that you just happen to go by and you're like, oh, I forgot all about that game, and you go to download it, it then takes you all the way back up to the top. And if it was doing that, trust me, I would not have gone through all 60 of my Skyrim saves. It just would have been okay, I'm taking one of you and just gonna call it good.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't have gone after every backwards compatible game at that point. I would just be okay, which are the ones I'm going to realistically play again?
Yeah. But
But yeah, I did that ostensibly to check out Symphony of the Night. I popped it in, just kind of walked around a little bit, but kind of same thing with like you and Yakuza, where it's hard to come back into a game after you've stepped away from it for a period of time. Maybe a couple weeks, couple months. 15 years, a little hard.
Yeah, that's you said that the game save was from 2007.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
I had two saves for that game, and both are from 2007.
whew. But,
Which is awesome. Very cool to be able to say, okay, I have this 15-year-old game save. Let me move it up to the newest version of this platform and then continue playing.
and that it goes back to a lot of the kudos that I have given to Microsoft over really like halfway through the Xbox One, and so far with the Series X. Just like Microsoft has done such a good job of being pro gamer. Just the
And
fact
and I'm-
of,
And it's like such a good job in comparison to their competitors. Like
Yeah.
for me, it's like, okay, same way. I'll give them tons of kudos for making backwards compatible games a focal point for them. But it's like a politician says, there's a lot of work left to be done. They have stopped that effort. They've basically reached the end of life for their backwards compatible, adding more games to that list. But there's still tons of Xbox and 360 games that aren't backwards compatible. I'd love to see a full list. I'd love to see every game, but that's not possible anymore nowadays. But kudos for what they did.
yeah. And I mean, who knows that maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, maybe they'll pick it back up a little bit. Maybe they'll add a couple more games or whatever. But But just the fact that you and I can go to the Microsoft Store through the Series X, and stuff like Asura's Wrath, be able to get the DLC for just a couple bucks each, for a game that came out 10 plus years ago. Whereas if you go to if you still have a PS3 and you boot up the PlayStation Store, it's much more of a hassle to be able to track the game down.
And I mean, you can still buy the game and you can still buy the DLC on the PlayStation 3, but
It's
since
full price.
Microsoft has made that stuff backwards compatible, that incentivizes those publishers to be like, well, we can still generate sales off this, and it's still on it's still on the web store, it's still on the newest platform. Let's put it on sale. I don't know the last time something was on sale on the PlayStation 3, but it was probably like 2014, maybe 2015.
Probably, and pretty much any time that you boot up the Vita and go to the PlayStation Store, all of the weekly deals and stuff have been the exact same games for about 3, maybe 4 years now. It is the exact same stuff all the time.
One thing that I found strange, since we've got the Xbox, is that has made me pay attention to the Xbox Store more in sales. Like, wonders, no wonder. It's a wonder that whenever you have the device, you actually start paying attention. Hey, maybe I'll buy something on that storefront.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
But so, I mean, I had not really paid attention to the Xbox storefront since, the 360, really, like 2013 or something, I guess, probably. But now I pay attention, like, okay, well, what's on sale weekly? And one thing that's baffling is that there are still some Xbox 360 games that go on sale, but not backwards compatible Xbox 360 games. Xbox 360 games that are still only on the Xbox 360. Like every week there's like 1 or 2 games that are just isolated to the 360 that go on sale. So I mean, even though we are, when did that platform launch? 2005. Even though we're like, closing in on 20 years from the time this platform debuted, there are still items on that storefront that go on sale.
Yeah, and like what you pointed out, like that go on sale that are not compatible with the current generation of hardware.
Yeah,
but
that you can only play on this 20-year-old device. This nearly 20-year-old device.
Well, and so much of, like, I feel like PlayStation would make so much more money if they just did more things that gamers wanted. Like if they like, and it seems like such a no-brainer thing.
That just sounds real stupid when we put it like that. That sounds like, I don't know, that sounds like little kid logic. Like if you just did the things people wanted, you'd make more money.
Because it's like, we've talked about, like, Capcom is not going to be making millions and millions of dollars off of Asura's Wrath. They're not. But they are going to, trickle in a little bit more residual money off of something that they released 10 plus years ago that they're really not having to put any extra work into, but they can get a few more dollars out of, either through the DLC sales or whatever.
And speaking of Capcom specifically, like, there's a very cogent example of this with Dragon's Dogma. They just announced a sequel to Dragon's Dogma 2, kind of a cult favorite game that obviously is going to spark interest in the original game. Like, that's one where after they announced Dragon's Dogma 2, it's like, okay, well, let me go see how much Dragon's Dogma 1 is. Like, I have a physical copy, but
it's a good
now,
game.
Now, all the time, it's 90% off on storefronts, which I think the version that goes on sale is basically like the remastered version of that 360 PS3 game, but remastered for the Xbox One, PS4.
Dark Arisen.
Yeah. So, I mean, in that case, there is a current version you can still buy for both platforms, but, I mean, if they ever announce, like, a sequel to Asura's Wrath, like, doubt it'll ever happen, but if they did... That'd be something where, like, players on the Xbox platform would be able to, easily go back and get that game, likely on sale, where you can on the PlayStation platforms, but you have to have that PS3 and you have to pay full price for, the DLC in the game that's, 10 plus years old.
But, it's just like I said, it's such a dumb and just no-brainer thing. But like when Sony was relaunching PlayStation Plus, and the premium tier that's $120 a year was going to feature PS1 and PS2 and PSP titles that are pulling from the classics catalog. Like they started off with like 13 titles, and then 2 months have gone by and they've added nothing to that catalog. So these people who paid...
Didn't they add some more classics games like the first following month?
Well, they started with 13 titles, and then they added one more title.
Okay, that may be what I'm thinking of.
In the same month that they introduced the relaunch of Plus. And so now we've gone 2 months, and they haven't added anything new that is just for premium, and so people are starting to get really frustrated because people paid $120 to get to this tier so that they could play these PS2, PS1, PSP titles that are generally locked to the PlayStation 3 or the Vita in some cases. And I feel like I would also be very, like, I'm most likely not going to, in fact, I do not see myself renewing my Plus subscription once it comes up for renewal, I think, in April. Because just so much about what PlayStation is doing is just not working. And it's just so frustrating and annoying, and it's just, like, with what Microsoft is doing, like... I still prefer owning my games, but there is just nothing out there that compares to Game Pass. Just the fact that, like, there are games, like What Remains of Edith Finch that we talked about last week, I would not have checked that game out. I would not have spent the money to check that game out. I mean, the game has been out for 5 years, and I never touched it. But because it was on Game Pass, I checked it out, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually, like, this is a good game. And I would not have checked it out had it not been for Game Pass.
And I kind of look at it too, like I kind of look at the evolution of that example for you is the same for me, where I would not have paid the $20 for this game. Probably, I would have waited for it to go on sale, but barring that, I probably never would have checked it out. But since I played it, and I always kind of think this way, like whenever I buy a game on sale, it's like, well, I enjoyed that enough where maybe the next game this developer puts out, I will get that day one. So you didn't necessarily get the sale from me, or you didn't make a lot of money off me this time, but next time I may be in your camp.
Yeah, and like Tony from GamerVision, typically, he says that if he tries a game out on Game Pass, and it ends up leaving the catalog, or before it leaves the catalog, he'll go ahead and buy it to support the developers, or he'll buy the DLC that surrounds a title if he wounds up liking the game. And I mean it's Game Pass has proven to be a really good avenue for trying out games that like Tunic is another title that I probably would not have checked out because I'm not really a Zelda fan. But
that's good because this is not hugely Zelda game.
I mean, true. So being able to try it out, and like it's just Sony keeps stating that with Plus they're not going to be doing their first party titles day and date, and that just they fine, whatever. But yeah, it's just like with what Microsoft is doing with Game Pass, and anything that's on Game Pass has a 20% discount through the Microsoft Store, and just the fact of just the backwards compatibility efforts. I do wish that the UI wasn't so cluttered, and I don't know if you're getting more comfortable with it, but like I still kind of get that jarring, like I don't know where things are at.
Yeah, it has not bothered me that much. Like system menu stuff, I find pretty easy to navigate. The thing that just confuses me, or that I just wish was easier, was the like screenshot recording, like going through those menus.
Oh, yeah.
Like sometimes I accidentally take a video or take a screenshot, or then a minute or two later I'm like, I don't need that, and I have to go through like 5 levels deep into the menus to like delete that. And then, I've also got it set up to where whenever I take a screenshot or video, it uploads it to the Xbox network. So then I could just immediately view it on my phone. But if I'm going to delete a video, like almost like a video or picture, like right after taking it, it's like, okay, I basically need to either wait for it to upload to the network and then just delete that version. And then I think it prompts me, do you want to delete the local version too? Or I just like go delete it from the queue, the upload queue, and then I delete the local version. I just wish that stuff was a little simpler. Like it seems pretty easy to navigate on the Nintendo and Sony devices, Sony platforms. It seems troublesome. But yeah, the system menu I find pretty simple, pretty easy.
I do like that it is fairly customizable. Like I did start going through and kind of clearing things off of the main dashboard, just clearing some things out, like the entertainment or the movies and stuff. Like I'm not really using my game platforms to buy movies. And
to be fair, I only stay like basically like 3 levels deep on that top level menu. Like I do go into the Game Pass section just to see like, okay, like whenever they put like the advertisements, what's coming or what's leaving, I'll check that stuff out from the system menu. And then same thing with the Microsoft Store. Maybe it's like the Xbox Live Gold section. I'll go and see, well, what are the gold deals of the week on Tuesday? But I mean, that's pretty much as deep as I go down. It's basically to the Microsoft Store section.
That is one thing that, again, giving some kudos to Microsoft for is the messages that they send out of like, these games are joining Game Pass, so keep an eye out for these. Like I like that. That's something that Sony doesn't do, and Nintendo doesn't do. So it is, as far as like when new things, and I mean Sony is cleaning up the PlayStation Store quite a bit over the last 2 weeks. They have now started to bury some of the shovelware games that were just filling up the main page of the PlayStation Store.
Yeah, True Achievements. I think I saw a story about that. where they're talking about Sony is making an effort to like crack down on those easy platinum games, easy trophy games.
Yeah. Because it essentially, like, Stray had just came out. People were talking about it, and it was all the rage, all the buzz that everybody was talking about. But if you went to the PlayStation Store, you would have to sift through about 20 to 30 quote-unquote new releases of these just shovelware games before you got to Stray. And so, like, Sony is making a concerted effort to clean up the store, to make it easier to kind of see the more worthwhile releases. And one of the people that I follow on Twitter, that Mystic Ryan, he actually did a video that shows before these updates for the PlayStation Store, for at least for the PS5, before they took effect, and then after, and it is very, very substantial. Because before the updates, like, there were 3 or 4 versions of the exact same game that the developer or publisher just put like a plus or ultra or something on in the exact same game. So you would end up having 3 or 4 of the exact same game just taking up the new release games section on the PlayStation Store. So it is nice being able to go to the PlayStation Store and not just be bombarded with shovelware crap. So that is nice. But like I said, I do like the messages that Microsoft sends out whenever new games are joining Game Pass, but also the games that are leaving Game Pass is kind of like a last hurrah for the games that have either been on the service for a couple months or a year. But
yeah, I mean, that's what turned me on to What Remains of Edith Finch, and in turn turned you on to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's things like that, just the little nuances and stuff that I think Microsoft is just nailing. I think they're just doing a good job of having a full-fledged ecosystem for Xbox. Which, do you have you played any of like the PC Game Pass stuff? Like, have you checked out any?
Well, about that,
Death Stranding. You played Death Stranding, didn't you?
No, but after doing Edith Finch, 2 of the games that True Achievements highlighted as, hey, these are some quick, easy completions that are leaving Game Pass soon. Alongside Edith Finch was 12 Minutes, and we talked about it last week. Its control scheme is kind of like a point-and-click game. You basically move the cursor, select where you want the character to walk to, and then he walks there. After playing it for like a minute or 2 on Xbox, I was like, I ought to see if I can just get this running on the PC, since I can play PC Game Pass, use that. Well, I needed to update my like Xbox app on my computer to do that. I had an older version of it, and unfortunately, around the time of like the Windows 10 updates, I eventually like capitulated and put like a do not install Windows 10, like quit reminding me sort of app. And I think I also did some registry edits, and I didn't document what I did, so it became an issue a while ago where my computer, like 6 months or so ago, or longer, 1 or 2 years ago, where my computer was like every day like just trying to restart, trying to do that, or it was just going into a blue screen of death. There was something where it was doing frequently, and it ultimately related back to that, where I had messed up my computer in such a way where everything functioned fine, but there was always this upgrade assistant running, and I could never remove the upgrade assistant. I could never like completely shut it off. Eventually, I don't know what happened. I don't remember if I actually got rid of it or if it just stopped at a certain point, but I can't upgrade my Windows version because of that, and so I can't take advantage of PC Game Pass because of that either.
Well, I mean, that is definitely that's one of the obstacles when it comes to like PC gaming. Like, I've got a good PC that can play uh, pretty much any PC game that I throw at it now, but I do know at some point, like, upgrades and stuff will have to start becoming more of a focal point as far as like hardware and stuff. And I don't know if I really want to get into like actually transitioning to being a full-fledged like PC gamer, because it can be kind of a daunting thing of trying to keep track of what goes where and where things save to, and
where things save to what,
as far as like the program files and all that kind of stuff. Like
that stuff's not hard,
but also like I like the plug and play nature of consoles.
Yeah, I mean just the ease of access.
The what?
The ease of access.
Yeah.
Yeah, plug and play nature. You know your game's going to run on it, and you know it's going to have a, at least like bare minimum quality. It's not going to be something where, well, crap, I bought this game and it really needs like a graphics card like one step above what I have, so now it runs terribly on my system.
Yeah. And then just like dreading having to like upgrade RAM or change out the graphics card or anything like that. Like I just like
and that stuff's not hard. I've expanded the RAM in my computer. I've done some other add-ons to it. Add like a wireless network card. I will resolve that issue at some point. After realizing that last week, like coincidentally, like last week or the week before, I'd been thinking for a long time, basically since encountering that issue in the last year or two, I've been wanting to either reset my computer or get a new one. I think my graphics card and everything, all that stuff is still fine for what I would be doing. So I'd probably just go the route of just do a full factory reset. The only thing that's kind of been preventing me, and admittedly I have not done much research into it or looking into it, is how to get Windows reinstalled on it. I think with the computer I bought, it basically had the single license for Windows. So if I reset everything, I don't know that license is valid again. And so I just need to sit down, research that, and then go through with the process.
Gotcha. But yeah, that's we've got quite a few games that are, we have 3 games that are nearing completion. With a couple games on the docket for to play next, but I think probably a good stopping point, don't you? And anything else that you can think of?
Sure. I mean, I could just keep talking, but it's a good time to quit as well.
That's I was thinking of possibly throwing the new Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Hero trailer in there as far as like a discussion point, because I was gonna kind of use that to segue to the dual Kickstarter that you found with Penny Blood and Armed.
Spiritual successors to Wild Arms and Shadow Hearts. Yeah, but I mean, we've talked about that stuff offline.
Yeah,
I think we've expressed each other's opinions about the Eiyuden trailer that dropped at Gamescom.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's a good stopping point. Lots of games. Finally getting into the swing of getting these games completed. But this,
well, you are. I've
yeah.
been knocking them out like every episode.
Well, yeah. I mean, even getting some surprises in there from your trip.
Yeah, and I'll have another surprise next week. I could name drop it here, but I'll go and wait. I'll keep it a surprise.
All right. Well, a good little cliffhanger for anybody out there. We are starting to.
Damn it! Yeah. How did you know I was going to play Cliffhanger on the Sega CD?
Well, I mean, that's. For some reason, I was just thinking that you were in that Stallone mood.
Well, I mean, I did check it out years ago, and it seemed fine. And Stallone was in Tulsa filming for a show, So Stallone's on the mind recently. But wow, cliffhanger for Sega CD. You nailed it in one.
I mean, usually you're the one with the just encyclopedic memory of things, and you're able to kind of use that to make some pretty profound guesses. But every once in a while, I get some surprises in there myself. So, but this has been episode 7 of Just One More Podcast. Just One More Podcast. Wow.
Okay, let's do that just one more time.
Yeah, that's just so. But yeah, this has been episode 7 of Just One More Podcast. I am Jeff from Just One More Level.
And this was John from MyBrainOnGames.com.
And you'll hear us again with the next episode, episode 8 of Just One More Podcast, here on Anchor or Spotify or Google Podcasts, or finally, Apple Podcasts. So, see you next week.
Bye-bye.